Guys, today I'm gonna be reading The Look by Michelle Obama. I've already read through the introduction myself already, but I'll probably just reread it again, see how long I can go without my voice starting to crack. And the reason why I'm trying to read out books out loud is just to improve my pronunciation on English, as well as just the fluidity of my sentences. Hopefully, I can carry that on to whenever I'm just trying to speak out my own thoughts and not just reading off a script. But yeah, let's get right into it. The Look by Michelle Obama with Meredith Coop, forward by Farah Jasmine Griffin. Introduction. The very first outfit I can remember loving was a brown polyester dress. It had a plaid skirt and a Peter Pan collar, and a long zipper up the front that my little hands could pull up with ease. All I had to do was step into it and add a pair of white knee socks and my T-bar Mary Jane school shoes, and I was ready to take on the world, or a day of kindergarten. Like every piece of clothing I owned that wasn't made by my mother, it was from Sears. Once a year, we'd pile into my father's Buick for our annual get your school clothes shopping trip to that working class mecca, where we could also pick up tools from my dad, get the car's oil changed, and treat ourselves to some roasted peanuts and chocolate malt balls. I was permitted to choose one dress from the rack of girls' dresses. My mother picked out our shoes, while I envisioned myself in white go-go boots, like the ones Teresa Graves and Goldie Hawn wore. My mom knew better. We lived in Chicago. She was buying me one pair of shoes that would work throughout the school year and stand up to the snow, as well as a pair of ugly rubber snow boots that you could slip over them. My fashion world may have been limited to what was available in the Sears girls' section and what my mother could sew, but in front of the mirror in my bedroom on Euclid Avenue, I remember twirling in that stiff brown dress, proud that I had chosen the outfit myself and that I could get in and out of it with no help. The material also never wrinkled and it hid stains, qualities that spoke to the practicality I was learning from my mom. Above all else, though, I liked the way I felt in it. I wouldn't have been able to summon the word at the time, but I knew in my little bones the experience of confidence. It was plain on the face of the pigtailed girl grinning back at me in the mirror. It was an early, enduring lesson in the power of clothes to shape not just how others view us, but how we feel about ourselves. Every day of our lives, we all have to wake up and wrestle our bodies, old or young, vivacious or infirm, toned or with a little extra dribble, into some sort of clothing. Some days we put on armor, the chic silk jumpsuit you might wear to school, that you might wear to face an ex, or when reconnecting with your old classmates at a high school reunion. Some days we slip into a costume, or what may feel like one, such as the brand new power suit bought for your very first job interview, or for those special life moments like your wedding. And other days, maybe most days, we find ourselves in sweats or jeans and one of the dozens of t shirts or sweaters folded in the drawer. Whatever the ordinary or extraordinary events that await, we dress for the journey. Our clothes can reflect our stories, but as far as my own goes, that little girl in the brown dress could never have foreseen a future where she was described as a fashion icon, or one where her image would be endlessly captured, admired, criticized, and dissected, such that there would be approximately 689 articles about her arms. Don't get me wrong, I've always wanted to look and feel my best when I was at school or the office or on a date night with Barack. But when you're suddenly thrust into the public eye, the intensity of that collective gaze isn't something I, or my regular person closet, was prepared for. Everything shifted after I stepped onto that national stage during Barack's first presidential campaign, and most of the articles that mentioned me invariably led with what I was wearing or some commentary about how I looked. Male reporters, female, it doesn't matter. When you're a woman in the public eye, you're often reduced, first and foremost, to your physical appearance. I would come to understand that there is no one who is ever pretty enough or looks good enough to escape criticism. And as black woman, I was under a particularly white-hot glare, constantly appraised for whether my outfits were acceptable and appropriate, the color of my skin somehow inviting even more judgment than the color of my dresses. My circumstances may be unique, but anyone who spent 10 minutes on social media is familiar with the rabid scrutiny of strangers and the almost always unwarranted harsh comments about how we present. Women are regularly, systematically demeaned for their looks because that's what we're valued for. If someone wants to take something away from a woman, they will try to rob her of her femininity, her beauty. Obviously, if we allow ourselves to be judged by those measures, then we'll never feel good about ourselves. I quickly came to understand that I had to be very clear and careful about how I presented myself so that my appearance wouldn't become a narrative, a storyline. It's a paradox most of us know all too well. We want to be able to embrace the beauty of fashion, to experiment creatively with hair, makeup, and style, to dress in a way that flatters us and makes us feel good. But at the same time, many women don't want to be judged solely for our physical appearance. We don't want our looks to detract from our ideas and accomplishments. When we moved into the White House, I knew it would be a challenge to walk that line. I needed a plan. First, I was going to find a way to screen out all the noise. I couldn't let the detractors throw me off my game with frivolous attacks. Like most women, I can be critical enough of myself without trying to see myself through thousands of others' eyes. So I did my best to tune out the relentless media and commentary about my appearance. With the help of the skilled professionals whom I relied upon styling, hair, and makeup, I could trust that I would be comfortable and camera ready for whatever event or appearance was happening that day. That was all I could control. People could say whatever they wanted. I'd keep my head high. Self-confidence is as much a choice and a mindset as anything else. As I dressed each day in the White House and prepared to give speeches and host events, often in front of hundreds of people and dozens of cameras, I wanted to look good for every occasion and photograph taken for me. This wasn't just about outward presentation, but about the inner strength that emanates from feeling strong, empowered, and healthy. As determined as I was not to let any superficial focus hijack the message, I also knew there was an opportunity to flip the script and use clothing to my advantage. That meant being as thoughtful and strategic about how I approached fashion as Barack and I were about all domestic facets of our life in the White House. We were all too aware that as the black first couple, we couldn't afford any missteps. If everything about me as First Lady was going to be analyzed down to the thread, we were going to leverage that to steer the conversation right back to the issues that mattered. If you want to talk about my gown, let's talk about the BIPOC designer who made it. If you're going to take 100 photos of my sweater, do it while I'm gardening or jumping rope to promote healthy living. If you want me to be on your magazine cover, let the focus be on what I stand for as much as on the heels I'm standing on. Though much thought went into my wardrobe, I tried to avoid talking publicly about the subject of fashion, since opening those floodgates risked my appearance consuming the media conversation even more than it already did, and defining me as my role as First Lady. Now that I've spent 2 decades in the public gaze and published several books, I think people know who I am and what I care about. My work, while ongoing and evolving still, is established enough that it cannot be overshadowed or dismissed. I can finally talk about beauty and style without the risk of it limiting my message. I've also come to see fashion as a part of my message and my ongoing mission to spotlight the stories and struggles of women. It's a lens into important topics and conversations: authenticity, self-expression, and empowerment. How you dress is a crucial part of how you discover and assert your identity and connect with your community and history. And let's admit it, fashion and beauty are creative and straight up fun. And that matters too. Who doesn't love to try new lipstick, or appreciate the feel of a lived-in sweatshirt, or enjoy the rush of slipping into a pair of new jeans that make your body look and feel incredible? You can experience the transformative power of style, whether you're admiring the craftsmanship of a beautiful dress or simply noticing how wearing just the right colors can make your eyes and face radiant. In this book, I invite you behind the scenes to share what it was really like to get dressed to be seen by the whole world. These stories and images reflect my lifelong fashion journey. Like all the journeys I've been on, from student to professional, from lawyer to mother to first lady, it's been defined by a careful balancing act of discovery, creativity, practicality, and risk. These pages feature not just outfits I've worn and loved, but also the moments that I lived through in them, big and small, personal and political, historic and ordinary, that were as memorable as the clothes themselves. You'll also get to meet the team responsible for helping me to define my look, my indispensable stylist, Meredith Coop, my makeup artist, Carl Ray, and my hairstylist, Ine Damtu and Jerry Radway, who share some of their own stories about this electrifying journey. This book is a celebration of fashion, but most importantly, I hope it is a celebration of confidence, identity, and authenticity, and an inspiration to think deeply about how we choose to define style and beauty. Days before your husband's US Senate election is not the ideal time to be asking yourself, what should I wear? And yet, this was the very predicament I found myself in during the lead up to November 2nd, 2004, when it seemed more and more likely that Barack was going to be elected senator. Win or lose, I would need to be ready to stand with him on stage as he gave a speech. And I did not have an outfit. I imagine just about every woman has experienced this dilemma, whether facing down a party with a crazy theme, a big job interview, or a first date. You scout through your closet and drawers, or scroll through every online shop you can think of, in search of just the right look. The event itself might already come with a certain amount of anxiety, and then add that to the pressure of figuring out what to wear. It can be daunting. Between working long, full days at the University of Chicago hospitals and driving Sasha and Malia, then 3 and 6, to find to to and from their various classes and activities amid the chaos of my husband's political campaigning, I hadn't had a chance to find an outfit. And, in truth, I may have been avoiding the errands that would have made what was happening to our family feel more real, more inevitable. I'd made it no secret to Barack that I had reservations about him running, and we made an agreement. If he lost that Senate race, there would be no more races, no more campaigns, or long legislative sessions away from home. He would give politics up for good. So I was nurturing in some small hope that our family would be spared that sort of life, even as I watched his own hope and the nation's swelling as his political star rose. As election day fast approached, all I knew was that I needed to find something to wear. Shopping has always been challenging for me. I'm 5'11", and I have a short torso and long arms, which means hems and sleeves are often too short. On occasion, I would find suits at Barney's that fit without tailoring. So several days before people started heading to the polls, I headed to their 3-story Oak Street flagship and hoped for the best. In the perfumed air of the women's section, I combed through the racks with increasing desperation until I came across a tan skirt suit made of a soft tweed fabric in my size. The material had a gold thread that gave it a sparkly undertone and made it feel special, but more important, it fit perfectly. Barney's was one block from Bloomingdale's, where I ran next and grabbed 2 coordinating light pink dresses for Sasha and Malia. Within a few hours, I was driving back south down Michigan Avenue, outfits for all 3 of us in hand. I took the stage several nights later with a jubilant Barack and a sleepy Sasha, who squirmed on my hips as Malia bounced around waving and pulling faces at the crowd. That suit checked my basic boxes. It was both polished and practical, which had been my main fashion criteria. But now that I had officially entered the public realm, I realized my philosophy going forward had to be more conscious. I got the first inkling of how being in the public eye would change my relationship with getting dressed precisely 3 months prior, when Barack spoke at the 2004 Democratic National Convention in Boston. I did not anticipate how that moment would change the trajectory of our lives. As I prepared for the trip, I was simply wondering what would be appropriate to wear when I joined Barack on stage at the arena after he delivered the keynote address to a crowd of thousands of delegates. I was treating the logistics of Barack's campaigning like other one-off events that came up in our day-to-day lives in Chicago, giving that potential Senate seat no more important than the girls' activities or my own job. I was still working full-time, so my to-do list for a rush lunch break could have been buy a birthday present for Sasha's friend, pick up burrito bowl, get a dress for the DNC. The day before I flew to Boston for the convention, I made another mad dash to a department store amid a jam-packed workday to try to find a suitable outfit, this time at Bloomingdale's. As I was skimming through the racks, I spotted a crisp white taffeta suit with a gray pinstripe and a slight sheen to it that I thought would stand out and reflect nicely on stage, beneath the bright spotlights, for what was to be my very first national appearance. Looking back, I'm struck by the risk, the naive foolishness, of picking an easily stained white suit, especially because I didn't travel with backup clothing. Again, it was a miracle that I found it. It was a miracle I did not get makeup or food on that white material. But then, every bit of that campaign felt miraculous, preordained. Before Barack went on stage, the best advice I could muster was, just don't screw it up. And in the next 17 minutes, about as long as I'd taken me to pick up my suit, Barack spoke about hope. He spoke about his background, what led him to this moment, and his vision for our nation's future. And that night, I started to let go of my own hope that our family's future would not involve politics. Standing under the glare of the hot lights in Boston, I let it sink in that this might become a new normal. These last-minute shopping jaunts became a hallmark of the early days of Barack's national political career, as I struggled to adapt my workhorse office wardrobe to a new lifestyle that included countless public appearances and photo ops. When I was a young lawyer, working women were supposed to approximate a female version of what men were. Mix and match conservative suit jackets with fitted skirts, or basic black and navy dresses. I would pair my suits with a curated rotation of tops with a frill or two to change things up, and I'd complete the look with pantyhose until I finally freed myself of a tyranny of nylon, as I discussed with Barbara Walters on The View a few years later during Barack's presidential campaign. But then Oprah called. Following Barack's electrifying convention speech, she wanted to feature our family in Oh, the Oprah magazine. It's one thing to even imagine Oprah in your living room, and another altogether to figure out what you're going to wear while Oprah is sitting across from you on your own couch for your first casual national magazine spread. I wore white capri pants and a pink sweater straight from my closet, mainly because I was nervous enough about hosting the Queen of Top, and that was an outfit I was comfortable in. I rarely wore makeup at that point in my life. The only other time I'd had my makeup done was for my wedding, but this occasion called for some expert help. Ingrid Grimes Miles was then a makeup artist for the morning news anchors on WGN-TV. I had met her earlier that year when Barack did an interview from our Hyde Park condo. He did not want any makeup aside from light powder, so I wound up talking with Ingrid and learned that she lived down in the street. So when Oprah called us, I called Ingrid. On the morning of the interview, I walked over to her house, knocked on the door, got my makeup done, and walked back home. Prior to my assuming this suddenly more public position, my fashion choices and beauty routine were straightforward. I got my nails done and had a standing hair appointment at Van Cleef, a well-known salon owned by Ronnie Flowers. Ronnie and his hairstylists understood professional black women. Before the sun rose, his chairs would be filled with women from all across the city who needed to be looking their best in an office by the start of the business day. After the interview, Oprah and I talked about how Barack's and my lives were changing in ways that felt equal parts exciting and absurd. I joked that I suddenly had a lot of shopping to do for all the public events. A week or so later, a massive box showed up on my doorstep. As a thank you for the interview, Oprah generously gifted me 2 Ralph Lauren suits and a collection of his luxurious cable knit sweaters. That was my first experience with upscale designer clothes. Running my hands over the fabric helped me understand what all the fuss was about. It was soft and supple to the touch. And then excuse me. And then I tried on the suits and marveled at the overall quality of the construction. The right cut, which hugged all the right places, made me feel confident and beautiful. With each event and appearance, the pressing question of what to wear grew louder and more insistent. Barack and I were paying off both our student loans, so affordability mattered. Still, I realized how having a few key investment pieces would make the job of getting dressed easier. I began to strategically splurge on some higher-end items to add to my more modest basics. As I set about stocking my closet for the events that continued amassing on our calendar like storm clouds, especially after Barack announced his first presidential candidacy on February 10th, 2007, at the old state capitol building where Abraham Lincoln had delivered his House Divided speech. Out of all the many reservations I had about my husband's presidential aspirations and the upheaval it would cause, wardrobe considerations remained low on the list. But I soon learned that the project of finding enough suitable clothes to wear was a daunting challenge. Barack could don the same suit multiple times and just switch up the tie, and he could leave the house without even thinking about his hair. Now, every time I appeared with my husband, there was a high chance a reporter could cover the event, and a photograph would run with the story. With all the media attention, I knew that I couldn't repeat the same outfit over and over, which meant I had to spend even more effort and energy thinking about what to wear and then procuring options. That took time, my most precious resource as a working mother. There never seemed to be enough of it. Panic ordering mountains of clothes from catalogs was not going to cut it. I needed help. Enter Maria Pinto. A dear friend had referred me to this local Chicago designer who worked with private clients and whose designs were exactly what I needed at that moment. Maria later described her clothes as modern minimalist with an architectural edge. My assessment was that her clothes were clean and elegant, with many options to mix, match, and accessorize. She made modern shapes, whether tailored pants, sheath dresses, or blazers, in fabrics that held up in a variety of colors. She also had a seamstress on site, so I could have clothes tailored quickly and easily. This was my first experience working with a designer who could recommend pieces based on my needs and sense of style, and then adjust or alter them so they were perfect for my body. Being in Maria's studio felt familiar. That staccato drone of the seamstresses adjusting a pant leg or tightening a waist reminded me of my mother's singer as she passed lines of fabric under its pummeling needle late into the night, making or mending our clothes. Plus, Maria exuded kindness and warmth, and like so many others who entered our family's life at this time, she was generous with her help as we started on this wild journey. Whenever I walked into her cozy studio with my latest wardrobe request, she'd smile and say, "I got you." And those truly magical words. The sheath dresses, pantsuits, and blouses that I sported throughout much of Barack's presidential campaign were largely Maria Pinto designs. There was one dress silhouette that she made for me in a dozen different fabrics and colors. I loved the uncomplicated style, which I could dress up and down with different cardigans or belts or jewelry. Having this chic staple in my wardrobe saved me so much time. A typical day might have me running to 3 events and then home by the girls' bedtime. Early on, I was recruited to travel to reach twice the number of voters. Somewhat reluctantly, I cut back to my work to part-time. I refused to compromise on time with Sasha and Malia, so work was what could give. Sometimes I started the day in the Arizona heat and ended it in the snowstorm in Illinois. I would change my look on the fly, throwing on a cardigan, switching up accessories, or changing from a flat to a heel to bring the look up to a notch. I got used to stretching one outfit in various directions. Then I was introduced to Ikram Goldman, who had an eponymous boutique just off the magnificent mile known for carrying up-and-coming fashion-forward designers. Ikram added as a de facto stylist in those days, helping me source a range of clothes from designers, all weaving their own unique stories into their work. She would soon introduce me to Meredith Coop, who had worked at the boutique and wound up moving to Washington, D.C., with me as Ikram's intermediary. I was grateful for the consideration and effort that went into my clothing, as it allowed me to focus fully on being present as I greeted the growing throngs of crowds and cameras at speeches and appearances. Then we won. My husband became the 44th President of the United States, and everything that had come before that was child's play. It was, as I've described before, like being shot out of a cannon. My life was a blur between November 2008 and January 2009. All these years later, it's still hard to process the unknown and surreal upheaval. In just a few short months, I had to relocate 700 miles away, get the girls enrolled in new schools, hire a full staff, and on top of that, figure out how I was going to get dressed for every event on the calendar, in the lead up to the inauguration, and then, of course, the next 4 years. Some days, I wished I could have gotten away with slipping on that beloved brown polyester dress from my childhood every day, zipping it up and being done with it. But I had come a long way from that little girl in front of the mirror, and I was about to have even more radically rethink my answer to that ever persistent question of what to wear. Okay. I think I'm gonna stop here. My voice is starting to break a little bit. I probably should have taken a water break in between the chapters, but yeah. Okay, if you guys want to hear me read more books, please let me know, and have a good one. Bye bye.